TIFU and stole a teacher's only joy. TLDR at the bottom. I was reminded of this by a post on Reddit a while back. The today in this story was 45 years ago. I almost choked when I mad that just now. I've always been competitive with myself about learning how to do things I'm genuinely interested in. I go all out to figure something out and then I'm off to the next thing. Usually, when I was in elementary school, the teachers would sit in a half circle on the ledges of the landscaping. It was an extremely old set of buildings and they were tall and wide bricks. Beneath them, the ground was packed so hard it stayed dusty, and if you were looking down, about the only thing you'd see were little holes in this really hard dirt that kinda looked ethereal. At least in the mind of a little kid. There was one teacher, Mrs. Wilson, who was a few years away from retirement, that I didn't know, as in I'd never had her as a teacher, who, every day, would sit out on the bricks with really long pieces of grass, dipping one into a hole, and pulling it out real quick. Then repeat, and repeat until the bell. This went on every day for years and years prior to me noticing her doing that, and likely before my existence. One day I just watched her and it fascinated me. So I went over and joined her. She told me that at the bottom of those holes were little creatures and that if you did it just right, you could yank them out of the holes. She had never caught one, but was certain this was true. I can't tell you what that did to my brain other than make me ridiculously determined to yank one of those creatures out of the holes. I was a shitty little kid for doing this. I know this now. Please understand I was a child over the long hot summer. Week after week, month after month, I'd sit in the dirt with my grass, trying to catch whatever it was I was trying to catch. And then one day, I caught it. It was white and wriggly. And I know now it was larva. I'm not sure what kind of larva it was, might have been roly-poly bugs. But I got really good at yanking them out over the summer, and I could not wait to go to school and tell Mrs. Wilson. On the first day of school, I ran to show her during recess. And I got one the first try, and showed her how I learned to do it. She seemed excited about it, and she was able to finally get one herself. I was so proud of myself. That was Mrs. Wilson's last year of teaching, as she announced she was retiring not long after. For all I knew, she went off into her retirement happily. Probably 20 years later, I ran into an old friend who was also a teacher there, and we started talking about all the teachers and different people we knew, and Mrs. Wilson got brought up and I was told this. She retired early because some student beat her at her bug catching game and stole her only joy. I swear, Irma, she loved trying to catch that whatever she was trying to catch, and that kid just ruined it for her. She was such a great teacher, too. I didn't confess. And that's how I took away an elementary teacher's joy. TLDR. Learned how to do something an elementary teacher wanted to do for years and caused her to go into retirement early by stealing her joy. Sounds like she was suffering from serious burnout. She didn't love teaching but went to work for the bug fishing? You were just the wake-up call, not the cause. That's the weirdest hobby and reason for early retirement at the same time. Also imagine being that envious of a child BC it catches bugs faster? My God, we've truly glimpsed the inner workings of the mind of a heartless lunatic. Your likes, sir or madam, would make Dahmer vomit from perversion, and Hitler kill himself again. Shame. I'm going to refer you to this comic from The Oatmeal. https theoatmeal.com/comics/online-gaming. So it isn't a perfect match, but it's good to think about. Kids have so much more time to spend on pursuits like this. If you can't stand being second best at something you otherwise enjoy, I have a difficult time feeling bad for you. We can't completely write off the possibility that she did something terrible and was cursed to walk this earth as an elementary school teacher until she could successfully teach a skill which she herself could never master. Sounds like your old friend heard both you and her talking about it and decided to be funny and tell you that. There's no way that's the reason she chose to retire. That's not reasonable. What amazes me is that another adult replayed what they heard as a child while she was passing by gossiping teachers. Probably 20 years later, I ran into an old friend who was also a teacher there, and we started talking about all the teachers. No way did an adult tell this to your friend cum teacher in a serious way. Your friend being a child themselves. Or is it that you befriended an actual teacher of that time? I am actually confused at this point about who told you this. Were they ant-lions? She showed you a puzzle, you learned how to do it and wanted to tell her you were being clever, persistent, and wanted to share your achievement with her. You were just being a nice little kid. If that was the only last thread she was hanging on to, then, sadly, that's on her, not on you. Actually sounds like the symptoms of dementia, so maybe you actually did her a favor.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Ermmahhhgerrrd is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.